Admiral Kreel Nax of the Galactic Unified Exploratory Command had a headache. Not the typical neurological discomfort experienced by most sentient beings, but the specific, throbbing kind that came from dealing with humans. His tentacular appendages, which served both as sensory organs and stress indicators, were currently doing a remarkable impression of a nervous disco dancer. The holographic display before him cycled through yet another incident report involving humans. Incident. Such a polite word for what was essentially organized chaos, with occasional moments of accidental brilliance. Take the Centauri diplomatic mishap of 2347, for instance. What should have been a routine first contact protocol devolved into an interstellar comedy of errors when a human representative, who was supposed to be delivering a carefully crafted diplomatic message, instead challenged the Centauri High Council to a drinking contest. Not only did she win, but she also somehow negotiated a comprehensive trade agreement, while completely inebriated, using nothing more than hand gestures, improvised interpretive dance, and what witnesses described as aggressive charisma. Or the Mars colony rescue operation, where human engineers repaired a critically damaged life support system using nothing more than standard-issue duct tape, a broken coffee maker, and what appeared to be half a sandwich. The Galactic Engineering Review Board spent 6 months trying to understand how it worked, eventually concluding that it shouldn't have worked at all, yet it did. The problem with humans wasn't that they were incompetent. Far from it. The problem was that they were unpredictably, gloriously competent in the most ludicrous ways possible. Kreel Nax reviewed the latest psychological profile submitted by the Interspecies Behavioral Analysis Division. The report was less a scientific document and more a bewildered attempt to categorize a species that seemed to operate on pure, weaponized spontaneity. Key observations included: humans view impossible as a challenge, not a limitation. Their problem-solving skills appear to be powered by a combination of caffeine, spite, and an alarming disregard for conventional wisdom. They are capable of transforming potential catastrophic failures into miraculous victories with alarming frequency. The current galactic political landscape was a delicate ecosystem of approximately 372 sentient species, each with millennia of diplomatic protocol and carefully maintained power structures. And then there were humans, the cosmic equivalent of a toddler, with a nuclear-powered chemistry set. Most species approach challenges with measured calculation. Humans approach challenges like someone who had accidentally swallowed both a manual of extreme sports and a quantum physics textbook, then decided to improvise. The Unified Galactic Council had implemented strict protocols regarding human involvement in any mission more complex than a routine cargo transport. These protocols had been revised no less than 17 times in the past decade, each revision becoming increasingly specific and simultaneously more nonsensical. Protocol revision 18 currently under review included such gems as: no human shall be permitted to improvise solutions involving duct tape, coffee, explosives, or interpretive dance. Emergency communication channels must not include memes, dad jokes, or sarcastic commentary. Diplomatic representatives must be screened for potential hold-my-beverage syndrome. And yet, despite all these precautions, humans continued to be the most requested species for high-risk, high-complexity missions. Because when all conventional strategies failed, humans didn't just think outside the box, they set the box on fire, rebuilt it into something completely unrecognizable, and somehow solved the original problem in the process. Admiral Kreel Nax's communication panel chirped another incoming report. Another potential human-related incident that would challenge everything the Galactic Navy thought it knew about problem-solving, diplomacy, and the fundamental nature of organized chaos. He braced himself. Something told him this was going to be a very long standard galactic rotation. My name is Jack Reiker, and I was about to become the galaxy's most accidental hero. Not that I was planning on it. In fact, planning was pretty much the last thing on my mind when the Galactic Logistics Committee decided I was their best hope for a mission that had catastrophic failure. Written all over it in bold, italicized letters. I was a cargo pilot. Not a special ops agent, not a diplomatic wizard. Just a guy who'd spent the last 10 years moving everything from industrial-grade lubricants to live exotic pets across various star systems. My most exciting moment prior to this had been successfully delivering a shipment of Andromedan sleep spores without accidentally causing a mass hibernation event. The recruitment process was less an interview and more an elaborate practical joke. 3 representatives from different alien species sat across from me in a room that looked like a cross between a medical facility and a disco nightclub. The lighting kept changing colors, which I was pretty sure was designed to make humans look as uncomfortable as possible. "Mr. Reiker," the Cloraxian representative began, its translucent skin shifting through several shades of green that I was certain was some form of emotional Morse code. "We have a delicate situation." Delicate in galactic terms usually meant we're one miscalculation away from an interstellar incident that could potentially vaporize several star systems. The mechnoid to his left a being that looked like what would happen if a refrigerator and a computer had a very angular baby clicked and whirred. Its voice came out in a precise, emotionless tone. "Our standard operational protocols have been exhausted. Human improvisational skills are required." I should have known right then that I was in trouble. The mission brief was a masterpiece of bureaucratic obfuscation. Stripped of its layers of technical jargon and diplomatic padding, it essentially boiled down to, go to this potentially hostile system, do something no one else has been able to do, and try not to start an interstellar war in the process. The target was the Nexus Corridor, a strategically critical region of space where 3 major galactic powers had been locked in a centuries-long passive-aggressive standoff. Imagine the most complicated diplomatic chess game you can think of. Then multiply that complexity by about 1,000, throw in some quantum uncertainty, and you might come close to understanding the situation. The previous 17 attempts by various species had resulted in 2 diplomatic missions mysteriously vanishing, 1 entire negotiation team accidentally turning themselves into a sentient gas cloud, and multiple peace conferences that ended with increasingly creative forms of mutual threats. 0 actual progress. "We need someone who can think differently," the Cloraxian said. "Someone unpredictable." I raised an eyebrow. "You realize I'm just a cargo pilot, right? My most significant diplomatic achievement is convincing a Regalian customs officer not to confiscate my lunch." The mechnoid's eyes, if you could call those glowing data points eyes, seemed to calculate approximately 372 potential responses before selecting the most bureaucratically precise one. "Precisely why you are ideal. My cargo ship, the SS Questionable Decision, was a marvel of modified engineering. To call it a ship was generous. It was more like a collection of parts held together by advanced welding, several generations of duct tape, and what could only be described as pure human stubbornness. The ship's AI, which I'd named SAS, Sarcastic Artificial Support System, was already preparing its commentary. "Another suicide mission, Jack? Excellent. I've been practicing my eulogy." "Not helping, SAS," I muttered. The mission parameters were maddeningly vague. Deliver a package. Make contact. Prevent a potential conflict. The kind of assignment that would make most rational beings run screaming in the opposite direction. But here's the thing about humans, we're not always rational. And sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Little did I know that this mission would make my previous cargo runs look like a pleasant afternoon stroll. The Nexus Corridor looked like someone had taken a cosmic paintball gun and splattered various shades of hostile across an otherwise empty canvas of space. Electromagnetic interference, quantum flux zones, and what the navigation charts euphemistically called unpredictable spatial anomalies made this place about as welcoming as a tax audit conducted by rabid wolverines. SAS chimed in with its usual helpful commentary. "Incoming transmission. Would you like me to translate it into potential imminent destruction or bureaucratic nonsense?" The transmission was a masterpiece of galactic diplomatic speak, which is to say, but it communicated absolutely nothing while simultaneously suggesting we were one wrong move away from starting an interstellar incident that could make the 100 Years' War look like a minor misunderstanding. "Decode it," I muttered, adjusting the ship's stabilizers. SAS responded with what could only be described as an electronic sigh. Translated, "Proceed with extreme caution. Do not engage. Do not deviate. Do not breathe too loudly." My package, the mysterious item I was supposed to deliver, sat in a containment unit that looked like it required more security clearance than most planetary governments. It was about the size of a standard coffee mug, which seemed ridiculously anticlimactic for something that apparently could prevent a potential war. The first sign that things were going to go spectacularly wrong came approximately 17 minutes after entering the corridor. A massive energy signature appeared on the long-range scanners. Not the kind of energy signature that says friendly hello, but the type that whispers I'm about to ruin your entire day. "Sass," I said carefully, "tell me that's just space debris." "Negative," the AI responded. "It appears to be a warship. Correction, 3 warships." Correction, 3 warships that looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts and pure, concentrated hatred. The ships represented 3 different species, each one fundamentally opposed to the others, each one capable of turning my relatively modest cargo ship into cosmic confetti with minimal effort. My diplomatic training, all 3 hours of it, suggested staying calm, and my survival instincts suggested finding the nearest exit and never looking back. "Incoming communication," Sass announced. "They're arguing with each other." The communication channels erupted in a cacophony of translated languages, each more aggressive than the last. It was like listening to a diplomatic conference conducted by extremely caffeinated debate club members with unresolved anger issues. Translator protocols struggled to keep up. Phrases like unacceptable territorial incursion and historical grievances flew back and forth, punctuated by what seemed to be increasingly creative insults. I did what any sensible human would do. I checked the ship's coffee supply and prepared for maximum chaos. The package in the containment unit suddenly began to pulse. Not an ominous horror movie pulse, more like a gentle, "Hey, I might be important" kind of pulse. "Sass," I said slowly, "what exactly is in this package?" The AI's response was suspiciously delayed, classified apparently. "Above my security clearance." "Above your security clearance? You're an AI that can hack into galactic communication networks." "Precisely," Sass responded, "which makes whatever is in that package truly, magnificently classified." The warships were now close enough that I could see intricate weapon systems that looked like they'd been designed by someone who had a very personal vendetta against the concept of peaceful existence. Their communication channels were a mess of overlapping threats, historical references, and what seemed to be increasingly personal attacks about each species' comparative technological capabilities. I had a sudden, terrifying thought. "Sass, are they fighting over me?" "Affirmative," the AI responded. "Apparently your delivery mission has been interpreted as a potential strategic move by all 3 species." Sometimes being a human in the galactic ecosystem meant being simultaneously the most unpredictable and most targeted variable in any given equation. And we were just getting started. If there's one thing humans are good at, it's turning catastrophically bad situations into slightly less catastrophic opportunities. And by slightly less catastrophic, I mean potentially world-altering in ways nobody could have predicted. The 3 warships had me bracketed like I was the last slice of pizza at an interdimensional buffet. Each vessel represented a different species with a millennia-long history of mutual hatred. The crystalline Zor'nak, whose ships looked like giant geometric irritation made of pure angular aggression, the biomechanical Kreel, whose vessels seemed to pulse and breathe like living nightmares, and the energy-based Luminarians, whose ships were essentially concentrated light, given murderous intent. "Sass," I said, "I need options." The AI's response was immediate. "Option 1, surrender. Option 2, run. Option 3, do something so monumentally stupid that it might actually work." I chose option 3. Naturally. The package, that mysterious coffee mug-sized containment unit, was still pulsing, and something about its rhythm was off, not threatening. Just different. "Sass, run a full spectral analysis on our little friend here," I muttered, hands dancing across the navigation controls. Silence for precisely 2.7 seconds. Then, "Well, that's interesting." "Define interesting," I said, knowing full well that with Sass, interesting could mean anything from mildly curious to we're about to cause an interstellar incident. The package appears to be a quantum entanglement transmitter, SAS reported, but not like any I've ever seen. Its quantum signature is adaptive. The warships were charging weapons. The communication channels had devolved from diplomatic threats to what sounded like increasingly personal insults about each species' evolutionary paths. Adaptive how? I asked. It changes based on proximity to potential conflict, SAS responded. Almost like a conflict resolution device. A crazy idea started forming. The kind of idea that would make galactic bureaucrats have simultaneous aneurysms. Can you broadcast its signal across all 3 ships' communication channels? I asked. Another suspiciously precise pause. Technically possible. Potentially catastrophic, definitely against about 17 different interstellar communication protocols. Perfect, I grinned. The broadcast went out. Not as a message. Not as words. But as a pure quantum frequency that was simultaneously a diplomatic proposal, a mathematical equation, and what could only be described as the universal equivalent of a group therapy session. The effect was immediate and bizarre. The Zor'nak ship's weapons powered down. The Kreel vessel's living hull stopped its angry pulsing. The Luminarian craft's energy signature stabilized. And then they started talking. Not arguing, talking. Turns out, their centuries-long conflict was based on a massive misunderstanding that could be traced back to a mistranslated communication from approximately 843 years ago. A communication that, when properly decoded, was essentially a very polite request to borrow some cooking utensils. SAS, I said, did we just accidentally solve an interstellar conflict with a quantum therapy device? Affirmative, the AI responded. And might I add, this breaks approximately 63 different regulations while simultaneously creating several new diplomatic protocols. The package in the containment unit had stopped pulsing. Mission accomplished, apparently. As the 3 warships, now looking more like a diplomatic convoy than a potential battlefield, began coordinating their next moves, I couldn't help but laugh. Humans. We don't solve problems. We accidentally solve problems in ways that make absolutely no sense to anyone else. Just another day in the office. The Galactic Unified Exploratory Command's emergency conference room looked like someone had taken the concept of bureaucratic panic and transformed it into architectural design. Holographic displays flickered with multiple translations, each more bewildered than the last. Admiral Krellnax's tentacular appendages had graduated from nervous disco dancing to what could only be described as a full-blown existential crisis. Let me get this straight, he said, his translator struggling to convey the exact mixture of confusion and barely contained hysteria. A single human cargo pilot, using a device we didn't even know existed, resolved a conflict that has lasted nearly a millennium. The report was a masterpiece of bureaucratic understatement. Diplomatic relations between the Zor'nak, Kreel, and Luminarians had not just improved, they'd essentially been reset to a state of cooperative enthusiasm that no one had thought possible. The Interspecies Diplomatic Review Board had spent 3 standard galactic weeks trying to understand how this had happened. Their conclusions were less a scientific report and more a collective nervous breakdown. Key findings included: the quantum entanglement transmitter was of unknown origin. No records existed of its previous deployment. The device appeared to be calibrated specifically to resolve multi-species conflicts. Said device was currently in the possession of one Jack Reiker, cargo pilot. My personal debriefing was less an interrogation and more a confused therapy session. Mr. Reiker, the lead investigator, a Cloraxian diplomat with what appeared to be a developing stress-induced color-changing condition, leaned forward. How exactly did you know what to do? I shrugged. I didn't. I just did something. This was apparently not the answer they were looking for. SAS, ever helpful, chimed in through the communication system. Translation: human applied standard problem-solving methodology. Step 1. Situation looks bad. Step 2. Do something unexpected. Step 3. Somehow make it work. The diplomatic corps, Looked like they were considering mandatory psychological evaluations for all human operatives. The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. The three previously antagonistic species had not only ceased hostilities, but had begun joint research initiatives. They were sharing technology, cultural exchange programs were being developed, and what was once the most dangerous sector of space was now being dubbed the Cooperation Corridor. My reward: a commendation that read more like a legal disclaimer than an actual honor. It essentially said, "We're recognizing your achievement while simultaneously making it clear we have no idea how you did this and would prefer you not do it again." The package, the mysterious quantum entanglement transmitter, had disappeared into the deepest levels of classified research. I was told it was under investigation, which in galactic bureaucratic speak means we have no idea what this is, and we're mildly terrified of it. SAS had been uploading analysis of the device to secure networks. Preliminary research suggests the transmitter is designed to identify core misunderstandings in multi-species conflicts, the AI reported. It translates not just language, but underlying emotional and cultural contexts. So basically, I translated, it's like the ultimate diplomatic therapist. Essentially, SAS confirmed, but with more quantum mechanics and less couch time. The Galactic Logistics Committee seemed torn between promoting me and placing me under some form of controlled observation. Humans had a tendency to solve problems in ways that simultaneously impressed and terrified the rest of the galaxy. My cargo pilot days were likely over. Something told me my next assignment would be significantly more complicated. As I left the debriefing, surrounded by alien diplomats who couldn't quite decide if I was a hero or a potential interdimensional incident waiting to happen, I couldn't help but smile. Just another day of accidentally saving the galaxy. SAS's final comment summed it up perfectly. Probability of this ending quietly, approximately 2.3%. And probability of causing more bureaucratic chaos, 97.7%. Wouldn't have it any other way. 6 standard galactic months after the Nexus Corridor incident, humanity found itself in an unexpectedly interesting position. Interesting in the way a nuclear physicist might describe a particularly volatile experiment, simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. The diplomatic ripple effects of my little misadventure had transformed the political landscape faster than a caffeinated quantum physicist on a sugar rush. Species that had spent millennia avoiding each other were now scheduling joint research programs, cultural exchanges, and what could only be described as the galactic equivalent of a team-building retreat. My personal file had become something of a legend within Galactic Unified Exploratory Command. Not an official legend, mind you. More like the kind of story told in hushed whispers during late-night briefings, accompanied by looks of equal parts admiration and barely contained terror. Another Reiker protocol, they'd say, which had become bureaucratic shorthand for something inexplicably effective that breaks every known rule of diplomatic engagement. SAS had been collecting and analyzing the aftermath. Statistical analysis shows a 437% increase in interspecies cooperation since the incident, the AI reported. A probability of this being a sustainable diplomatic model, approximately 62.7%. That's oddly specific, I remarked. I'm an AI, SAS responded. Specificity is my entire personality. The quantum entanglement transmitter, my mysterious package, had become the most studied and least understood piece of technology in known space. Research teams from multiple species were working simultaneously, each convinced they were on the verge of understanding its mechanics. They weren't. My next assignment came through channels so classified that the communication itself seemed to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty. The briefing document was a masterpiece of bureaucratic obfuscation, saying everything and nothing simultaneously. Translation: they wanted me to do exactly what I'd done before, except this time it was intentional. The Zor'nak, Kreel, and Luminarians had become something of an unlikely alliance. Their joint diplomatic missions were already causing raised eyebrows across multiple star systems. When 3 species that had spent centuries trying to destroy each other suddenly start collaborating, people tend to pay attention. Incoming transmission, SAS announced. Priority level, we're not panicking, but we might be panicking. The transmission was from Admiral Kreel Nax himself. His tentacular appendages were visible in the holographic display, still doing their signature nervous dance. "Mr. Reiker," he began, the universal translator struggling to convey the exact mixture of respect and barely contained anxiety, "we have a situation." I knew that tone. "Define situation," I said. "Another potential conflict. Another seemingly impossible diplomatic challenge, another region of space that defies conventional resolution. In other words, another Tuesday." The crazy part wasn't that they were asking me to help. The crazy part was that they had no better options. Humans had become the galaxy's equivalent of a Swiss Army knife, unpredictable, multifunctional, and occasionally capable of solving problems no one else could even comprehend. SAS interrupted my thoughts. Probability of this ending smoothly, 3.6%. The probability of causing an interstellar incident, 96.4%. Those are pretty good odds. I grinned. The quantum entanglement transmitter, still in its classified containment unit, pulsed softly, almost like it was winking. Somewhere in the vast, complicated machinery of galactic diplomacy, something was brewing. Another impossible situation waiting for a human-shaped solution. And me? I was just a cargo pilot. Well, technically an accidentally legendary cargo pilot who had rewritten several millennia of interstellar conflict resolution. Just another day at the office. SAS's final commentary summed it up perfectly, saving the galaxy. One inexplicable mission at a time. He wouldn't have it any other way.